So I just wanted to make this video because I bought this magnetic drain bolt, which you can find very cheap on eBay, and you can see the little magnet on the front there. I wanted to make this video because this goes to prove a point why everything that I do on a car essentially reverts back to OEM, or at least OEM standard, if not an intense upgrade from OEM standard. For instance, the radiator. So obviously I had an OEM radiator. The thing lasted 217,000 miles on the dot, and it blew the bottom plastic reservoir tank on the radiator itself. And obviously, if I'm gonna do anything coolant related, it's gonna be an upgrade because I run cars hard and hot. So that's a prime example. Obviously, I mean, full aluminum, dual core radiator, and there's my little transcooler. But this just is a direct address to why I go OEM standard, and why, if you don't get OEM or better, this is what you get. So this crush washer is what came with this drain bolt, which, yeah, it fits. Everything, looks great. But, I mean, besides it already being flimsy and falling off, this is literally the exact same size as the fucking flat spot on the nut head. So, when you get an OEM crush washer, you can already see the difference. Even the thickness is different. The machine finish is different. It's a softer, cheaper material. And it's basically cranked out on an assembly line. This is smooth to the touch. It's very precise. It's not all scratched to hell. And when you actually put it on the drain bolt the right way, you can see that you're going to get a lot more surface area, and you're going to get a lot more crush, and you're going to get a lot more smooth surface to smooth surface sealing on that versus this. So just goes to show you, just making a point. I want to throw it all out there. And obviously, if you have any questions about the statement I've made, feel free to ask, because these are another example. These are the stock OEM K-Series fuel injectors with the fuel injector seals, and it's almost asinine to not go OEM injector, which I get a lot of the time at my job. People want to come in with aftermarket fuel pumps and fuel injectors, and really, you get what you pay for. So these are just standard, I think, 210cc stock on a base K, and I installed them. Installation, no problem. Seal kit, flawless. Everything works as it should, as intended from the factory. And with any other injector, I mean, essentially, you won't know what you get unless you flow test it, or you run it and break your shit, and then you find out, when everything's already broken, that the fuel injector is the failure. So, prime example, if you get an injector that doesn't flow the same as the others, and you're pushing it, and the, duty cycle is, pushing the limit of any injector at that size, you're going to get flow rate change and combustion change, and everything's going to be affected. So when you go OEM injector, you know what you're getting, and if it doesn't work as it should, go to the factory manufacturer and tell them, and they will replace it. When you get one of these cheap China injectors, and the thing will just go to piss. So everybody complains that their car is broken, and it's the manufacturer's fault that the failure happened, when You get so many of these people out here that want to replace everything on their car with aftermarket parts. So there's a time and a place for aftermarket parts, and there's a time and a place for OEM standard or better parts. And if they're better than OEM, you need to know that it's coming from a reputable company that knows what they're making. Now, in a lot of the builds that I do, I go eBay. And yeah, you frown on it. But if honestly you do your research, you will actually get quality parts that are baselined at a high-end competitor's part, same quality, same everything, and it just doesn't have a brand name on it. So you can get that, and that's fine. But then you need to know what you're actually working with, because the difference between this rubber gasket and this is OEM, and you order something that's not OEM, that may just not fit. You never know. You're never going to know. So you buy, you waste your money. Just buy OEM as you should. With a lot of the stuff that I buy, you'll, like, for prime example, you'll find an exhaust on eBay. Oh yeah, 4-to-1 crap header, whatever, and it works as it should, and it lasts, semi long. And then down the line, the spot welds break, and you're leaking out a lot of exhaust, and your AFR, air fuel ratios, are to shit, and then your car progressively runs like crap for a long period of time, which also causes failure. So, in essence, the best thing to get off of, especially a build like this, because everything on this car has been factory intended, factory made, or an upgrade. And people always ask, oh, how much horsepower is it pushing? What can it do? Let me take a ride. What is it going to do? Well, I can tell you one thing. This car is going to run as it should. It's going to drive as it should. It's going to start every time it should. And unless there's an operator error, the car will perform how it's intended to perform. So, if not better, because obviously, like the cooling system, I have a new OEM thermostat, a new OEM water pump, all the hose components have been upgraded, all the standard Honda clamps that, over time begin to fail, those have all been replaced. So it's got to be intended to be a factory style, or retain the factory standard, and or at the baseline, and or upgrade everything. So this car is not intended to be a fast, crazy race car. It's made to be a revised, streetable, dailyable vehicle that's going to perform and drive as intended from the factory, and get that driving, as close to 0 miles on the car as possible. So it needs to be running as it should, right out of the frickin' assembly line. But then there's also another perspective too, because everything that I replace and everything that I do is supposed to be, or is intended to be, an upgrade beyond the factory. So when I did this car, I took everything out, aside from, obviously the suspension stuff that hasn't been touched yet, which we'll get there eventually. But everything has been revised and touched and moved, and, even this ABS module, this has been removed and moved and, put out of its place, but it's always going to get resecured with new OEM bolts, and it's always going to be more stable and more efficient than what it was before. Not like I've upgraded it or anything, but it's, even in an accidents aspect, it's stronger than it was, either when I got the car or when it came off the assembly line. So that's the key point. And another thing that I can show you, grounds. So this is one of the grounds that's a prime example of what most people let get like this and don't replace it. Now, that ground is working, it's doing what it's supposed to do, it's giving, grounding to the engine. If it was ever even needed, because most of the stuff that grounds off of this isn't anything that's going to be detrimental to the car, but yes, it is a chassis ground. So it is a necessity, because all the other grounds or additional grounds that have been put on the car are doing that job anyways. And then you've got a new alternator, you've got, that battery, but then I got the Odyssey over charging right now for that. So the key goal with this car, because a lot of people are starting to ask me, the key goal for this car is to semi-look good. It's not going to be a stanced car. It's intended to be a great version of, what Acura was doing at the time, and it's got a K-Series motor. So, easy parts, easy tuning, easy, you could do anything. You could take this motor out right now, as it sits, and you could change out probably about $1,000 to $2,000 worth of parts and get some supporting mods. But if you ran it with just, intake exhaust, or if you had a little extra money spending on a turbo or a supercharger, which I wanted to go Jackson Racing on the supercharger on this one, but just not practical because fuel economy and everything. But if you take this motor and you just, the hell with it, let's pull it, let's, build the head, let's get a actual real intake manifold that flows and that's efficient. And this motor, all motor, could easily push 250. And 250 in a revised, lightened chassis that's been structurally looked over and made better, you'll have a car that can do whatever the fuck you want it to do. See, I even got the support brace in there. So that's my C-pillar top support brace that's going to be going on. But, yeah, as far as the car goes, I've been wanting this car since, I was damn near 15 years old, and I got it, and everything's just, little by little been better and made better. It's not the cleanest, but for what I paid for it, it is what it is. So I got to put the back seats back in too. But I would say the car's probably at about 2,800, 2,805 weight wise. Because everything in the rear's been pretty much upgraded. Brakes, I'm going with a sway bar eventually. But yeah, it is like redone OEM style sway bar. So it does skip and hop. The exhaust has been on here forever. So I used to run this car when I really wanted it to be a race car, straight piped, and it was a rough cold start. So one of my buddies gave this to me, and we ended up welding it on because these brackets up top mounting the exhaust of the chassis always used to break, and the welds would break, and there'd be a hole in your exhaust. It sounded like crap. So we did something about that, and we made the car quieter, but this eventually will get replaced as well. I just don't know what I want to do yet, because I've got a really nice muffler sitting over at my other house, and I think it's going to sound good, but I might want to put it on a different car. But this will work for now, and I did do that janked cut job on the outlet there for the muffler. These white rims, even these are like a straight budget. I think I got the whole set for $100, and they were looking like S2000 AP2 rims. The original ones, I think they were either 17s or 18s, that came on the S2000. I was like, dude, those are S2000 rims. And the guy that I hit up on Facebook Marketplace was telling me, he's like, yeah, there's some Honda rims, but I don't know what they are. So I was looking around and I kind of figured out what it was. And I was like, are they TLS? Are they TL? Are they S2K? And it come to find out they're like some 2002 Accord, I don't know, Accord EXL or Accord Type S or like a Euro R Accord rim. And the dude didn't know what he had, and he had them for like 85 or $100 on Marketplace. And they were gone. I mean, the rims were just trashed. And they had some beat tires on them, and they were all banged up. And I told him, I said, hey, I'll take them for 85, And I don't know if his price was 100 or whatever, but he really just wanted to get rid of them. He didn't care. They're all banged up. And I shot him over to the rim guys, and I was like, dude, can you do anything? And he's like, yeah, I'll do something for you. So he pretty much reworked them, I would say about 90% all the way around. And we got him championship white. So we kept that kind of Japanese Type R, original Honda look to them. Type S, Type R, whatever. Actually, yeah, it would be, but I don't have the split 5 spokes. So just keep it OEM, strong rim. And I got them painted white. Still haven't gotten, any sick center hubcaps or bearing caps or whatever the fuck. I don't know what you're going to call them. So I haven't gotten those yet, but I did get the meaty Federal tires on there, and I went from 215 to 225. It's a little bit more grab. And I kept the size perfect for like rallycross, lowering and not, beating up your fenders. I kind of took everything into account on that, but honestly, I think ultimately in the end I'm going to have to get some different type of rim tire setup, because if I ever do go rally and I ever do go limited slip diff on this, she's going to be squealing. So I do have to take care of that, but that's at a way later date. And the brakes are definitely getting the upgrade. So the rears, those are all drills slotted. What's the kit? I don't know if it's Power Stop or what's the other one? I don't know, whatever it is. But whichever these are the kit that you want, because whatever the other kit is, they are the ones that I've had on my green car, my 01 Accord, and they pretty much warped and rusted to crap within a year. And these, now the original fronts that I have on here are, I think, like Duralast with an upgraded caliper and a standard pad. And they've lasted forever, but I did have a piston leak cylinder, or a caliper piston leak on this side, and this one got replaced. So this one is about 6 months, 9 months old, and this is why we don't buy, like, AutoZone crap or Reman crap when we go to brakes, because this one I did buy, and it was, I believe, an AutoZone one, and I actually redid it and coated it, and it's just starting, 2 to 5, or no, it's got to be about 4 or 5 years, and this thing's just starting to show rust. So that goes to show you the difference between not only OEM, because if you have an OEM caliper, brake, and rotor on a car, I mean, the thing should last at least 4 to 5 years. But just taking something like what you've seen on the other side, and you just slap the part on, and don't give two thoughts about how long is this going to last and what can I do to make it last longer. This is your result in half the time, versus actually coating it and making it last, twice as long, whatever you want to say. So that's another thing. And plus, also when I go to brakes, I am upgrading these brakes. These are going to get steel braided lines. The brake booster is sufficient. The check valve in the brake line seems to be working as it should. I just don't know if I want to do any altering with the ABS module because I'm not actually locking anything and I'm still getting some slight activation just a little too soon. So it's either going to be deleting that, running a prop, and redoing all the lines, which I really don't want to because these lines are in great quality condition. Or what I already intend to do is just run what I got right now, run the steel braided front and rear, which I got for I think 120 or 150 bucks, and then go upgraded caliper rotor pad in the front, and then leave obviously the rear how they are now because the rears are great. The pad wear level, I mean, these things have just been honestly phenomenal. E-brake's nice and tight and stiff, so you really get that, you know, 4-click pull down OEM feel. I'm not drifting the car. I did at one point want to go hydro e-brake just for one, safety, and having another outlet to stop yourself with, because if your e-brake line goes out and your hydraulic system's still working, you can stop. If your brake lines go out, you usually have a check valve in those reservoirs in your e-brake reservoir, a check valve that it'll push pressure through, but it won't receive it back. So no air that's getting bled or altered into the system during a situation like that never compromises the safety of the vehicle. So, or like a split. You can run a couple different things on that. So I always thought about that. But essentially, you want the emergency brake cable driven to operate as it's intended. I mean, it's just manual transmission, automatic, it doesn't matter. You always want to have that available. So, with that being said, I mean, this car is, you know, what's really ironic about this car though is that the airbag light is on. And